So we are going to be looking at some of the changes that we've had in the contract from last year to this year. And I know this last year has been kind of a little crazy. I think it's the first time that I can remember that we've had contract extensions, and contract extensions for some of you that have lasted almost the whole year. So that's odd in and of itself. So you went from a 1920 contract and you're going to be jumping over 2021 into a 21-22 contract. And that's just crazy. But that kind of goes along with how the rest of our year has been this year. So anyway, I wanted to go over the changes. There aren't many, and I don't think they're going to be a surprise because, as I said, we've been talking about some of these for a long time. So I'm hoping that you're not surprised by what you see on here. But if you have questions during the presentation, please feel free to put those in the chat box, and we will do our best to answer those when we get to the question period. Okay. All right. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to review the VPK contract changes and then the SR contract changes. Coincidentally, those are exactly the same. They just happen to pop up in a couple different places in the contract, but essentially there was really only one major addition to the contract this year. So hopefully I'll get you all out of here before we thought we were going to get out of here. The other thing I want to do is I want to point out an ELC policy change that Lindsay has been skipping around the county talking about for a little while now, since March. And I'm sure that won't come as a surprise, but hopefully it's a happy surprise for all of you. And then we're going to let Rhonda jump on here. Rhonda is our supervisor for the reimbursement team, and she's going to be talking about reimbursement tips and things that will hopefully make your lives a lot easier every month when it comes to time to deal with all of that paperwork that has to happen for reimbursement. And then I have some tips for contracts, for doing the contract process, and some tips for that, some things that we're seeing that people are kind of missing and causing us to have to reject their contracts and send it back to them for them to do again. And we want to kind of, be respectful of everybody's time. And we do have a quick turnaround this year. We didn't get our contracts very early this year. And so we have to get those turned around really quickly this year. So we want to get everybody get in on the first try. We don't want to do a 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out kind of thing. We want to have you hit the ball on the first pitch. So, and then we'll have some time for questions if you have questions. The questions we're going to want to talk about are process and contract questions, kind of general questions. If you have specific issues, individual issues that you're having trouble with, then that would be something that would be a conversation for your contract specialist. And I'll be providing you their contact information at the end here. Okay. So we're going to move on to our VPK contract changes. And the only thing that has changed besides the dates throughout the contract, obviously it doesn't say 1920 anymore or 2021, it says 21-22. The provider eligibility. In that section under number 7, general eligibility, is the EVerify requirement. Now, I know that everybody has done their 21-22 profile. And in order to do your 21-22 profile and make it active, you had to submit your EVerify Affidavit. So that affidavit is your guarantee to the state, who you're signing the contract with, that you have registered with the EVerify system and you will be utilizing it to screen or verify that any new employees hired after January 1st of 2021 are eligible to work in this country. So that is what that is for. The legislation passed early in 2020, a rule requiring anyone contracting with the state to utilize that EVerify system for new hires. Essentially what it is it's kind of a systematic data system that double checks the same documents that you're getting for a new hire's I-9. You know, when they fill out an I-9, they give you a copy of their social security card or a passport and a driver's license. So essentially what the EVerify system is, it's an electronic system that does the same thing. That does not mean that you now don't have to do an I-9. You still have to do an I-9 because that's for a different department. But it is essentially the same thing. So you're not doing anything you weren't doing before, you're just doing it in a different way. And then the EVerify is also brought up again in the termination and non-compliance section in the VPK contract. It's in paragraph 54, termination for cause, and they've added the failure to use the EVerify system or implement corrective action if we find out you're not using it. That would be grounds for termination for cause. So I just want everybody to be aware of that. At this point, you just need to make sure that we have a notarized EVerify affidavit in your provider profile for this coming contract year. Now, some of you that are doing VPK over the summer, and it's not very many, we don't have very many programs doing that, but if you are one of them, summer hours just for this year, you are allowed to do anywhere from 200 to 300 instructional hours due to a lot of us getting a late start on summer VPK because we got a late start this last fall. So typically summer VPK is 300 instructional hours, period. But this year, because everything's kind of pushed back a little bit, they'll allow a minimum of 200. So you can decide to do anywhere between 200 and 300 instructional hours, and you will be paid accordingly. You will be reimbursed for the number of hours that you instruct, but you do have to do a minimum of 200. Going into next contract year, our VPK providers on probation programs, our POP programs, will maintain their current readiness rate because so many children weren't able to attend VPK classrooms for a good part of the year. Testing was not done, and everyone will be maintaining their current readiness rate, which means that you will also need to make sure that you are maintaining your current improvement plan for the 21-22 contract year. So we're going to make sure that you review your plan and that you're keeping up with it and maintaining it into the next contract year. And that's it for VPK. So if you're a VPK provider and that's all you do is VPK and you have something better to do with the rest of your evening, you're certainly welcome to jump off right now. You're welcome to stay if you want to hear what's going on the SR side, but that's it basically for VPK unless you have a question you want to ask later. Okay, so we want to talk about SR contract changes, and coincidentally, they're exactly the same as they are for VPK. It's the EVerify. And again, I know that all of our school readiness providers have their provider profiles in for 21-22, and I know you have all uploaded an EVerify affidavit. That too, the requirement for that, the rule for that is found in the provider eligibility, general eligibility section. This time it's in the G paragraph. And it's exactly the same wording. And then the non-compliance part, it's actually in the non-compliance probation and termination section in the SR contract. It's in paragraph 67 in termination for cause. And again, it's worded exactly the same as it is in the VPK contract. So that is essentially, other than dates throughout the contract being changed to 21-22, those are the only changes that happened this year with the contracts. I did put in a snippet of the top of the EVerify affidavit. This is what it looks like. It's available on our website. If you go to our website and go to the For Providers tab, you'll see a section that says Provider Forms. If you go down to that section, you'll see a resource section, a form section, and you'll also see some policy sections. Those are coalition policies and state policies. If you go into that, you will be able to find the EVerify affidavit that needs to be filled out and notarized. This is an annual document. You will have to do this every year and upload it into your new provider profile each year. So you're off the hook for now until like next March. And then we're going to ask you to do it all over again. So, but it is there. Just make sure that you are filling it out correctly and that it is notarized. And we will, of course, let you know if we find any issues with any of the documents that we currently have. So I want to talk a little bit about the policy, ELC policies. In an effort to meet the diversified needs and observances of our providers, the Early Learning Coalition Board approved a new holiday schedule policy. This is going to allow providers to choose all 12 of their reimbursable holidays. It's all 12 of the holidays. So you want to make sure that you include all of your closure dates on your closure calendar and make sure that those 12 requested paid holidays are included in those dates. Okay. The other thing that I wanted to bring to everyone's attention is the changing of those dates. Now, you are more than welcome to change your holidays after you submit your contract. It does require a contract amendment. You need to make sure that you allow time for that process because it comes into your contract specialist, then they have to double check everything. They have to send it up to reimbursement. Reimbursement has to make the change, and then we can get it all fixed. So please don't wait until the day before you want to change a holiday to let us know about that, because it is a process and it does take some time. Now, the other thing is that a holiday, a paid holiday, cannot be changed after the fact. So you can't come to us on July the 10th and say, oh, I wanted July the 5th off for the Independence Day. We can't do that. The system does not allow for that. So we cannot change the dates after the date. I just want to make sure that everyone is clear on that. Please don't ask us because we feel bad when we have to say no. And so now I'm going to kind of let Rhonda take over and talk about the reimbursement reminders and the tips that she has for the coalition contracted providers this year.
Hi, everybody. How are you tonight? Hope everybody's doing well. I'm hoping that the 21-22 contract year will go smoother and profiles are done and contracts will be approved ahead of time and reimbursement specialists can key all of your 12 paid holidays on time and so on and so forth. So we really need you to do your part and do it as quickly and as efficiently as you can. I don't know if every single provider knows this or not, but there is a resource section on our website under the For Providers menu across the top there. And in that section is all kinds of very informative documents, things that will help you do lots of things to the right way and allow for, from a reimbursement perspective, you to be reimbursed correctly the first time. And that's always our goal, right? Is to get your attendance in, get your sign in, sign out sheets in on the same day by the due date so that your reimbursement specialist, because caseloads are assigned alphabetically, right? So FERA, for instance, has number 1 through CL, right? Well, she can't do all of them in a day. So we need providers to do their part on time so that as we start processing, we can go, yes, 74th Street attendance is here and the sign in, sign out sheets are here. Yay, I can process this attendance. And then by the time she gets down to CL, hopefully all providers have done their part and the reimbursement specialist can process their caseload in the same amount of time as the next specialist. So we want providers to know how to do their part. So for the 2021 contract year, there's a tip sheet already out there and available. We've e-newsed it, we've talked about it, we've said a lot of different things about it. But I'm also doing an updated one for school readiness for 21-22, which encompasses the holiday policy change. And mostly that's the biggest change, but reminders of everything that you all need to do and the way you need to do it to help us help you maximize your reimbursement. That's always our goal, right? I want to pay you for the care that you did in good faith, and I want to pay you all the money that we owe you, correct? So sign in, sign out sheets. Sign in, sign out sheets should be either uploaded to the monthly sign in, sign out sheet folder. Please alphabetize them first. The issue with the uploading is unless your scanner minimizes the size, the file size is 2 megabytes. megabyte. So if you have 80 kids and your resolution on your scanner is large, you can only do one page, one page, one page. Well, that's not really very beneficial to you or efficient, and it really doesn't help us unless you are a very good labeler. So we do allow you to fax them. Also fax them in alphabetical order, okay? Why? The attendance is in alphabetical order. If you have 80 kids and I have B's and then Z's and then H's and then L's, I've got to keep scrolling back and forth through the fax to figure out where Johnny Smith's sign in, sign out sheet is, or Susie Lawson or whoever. So please help us by doing that for us. And sign in, sign out sheets are due by the same deadline that is noted in the actual attendance screen for each month. Generally, it is the third business day of the new month. However, July has a problem, right? It says in rule that you have to submit them the day before the holiday if the third business day is a holiday. So June attendance is really technically due close of business on July 2nd. Okay, so look for your due dates in your attendance sheet. And when you submit the attendance, make sure we have your sign in, sign out sheets, whether you upload them to the monthly sign in, sign out sheet folder or whether you fax them. It's your responsibility to make sure they're there. If you can see them, we can see them when you upload them. And if you fax them, you want to make sure you get a confirmation, a receipt page that says it was received. Okay. Attendance. Again, attendance is due by close of business on the third month. We still have providers, unfortunately, sometimes that make sure we get their sign in, sign out sheets, but they don't submit their attendance. Okay. Once you submit your attendance, there is a message in the top right-hand blue gray box that says attendance submitted to the ELC on this date by this person. If you see that message, yay, you finished the process and we have received it in our queue and we can see it. If you don't get that message, then we don't have your attendance. You can also follow along. When you submit the attendance, there is green SUB next to each child's name. Once we process it, it switches to APP for approved. If we reject it, usually the biggest reason is a missing sign in, sign out sheet. The second biggest reason is attendance doesn't match the sign in, sign out sheet. They should always match. There should never be a discrepancy between the attendance and the sign in, sign out sheet. Okay, so really pay attention. It's easy to miss a row. It's easy to get distracted, look away and record an absence on the wrong row, etc. And then get it in on time and make sure it's as accurate as it should be so we could process it as soon as we have both pieces.
Rhonda,
yes.
Can you give us the fax number to
Yes.
fax the sign-in sheets?
Yes, we really like for you to be able to fix your scanner and your resolution, and we've asked the state to help us out by allowing auto compression on uploads. But if you absolutely cannot figure that out, please fax it to 727-400-4472. Now, let me remind you, those sign in, sign out sheets don't come directly to my team. They go to a folder, and then that folder is distributed by more than one administrative person. So please make sure you get your confirmations. Okay, you should have like a result equal okay or something like that. If you go somewhere to I don't know, Kinko's, or if that's even in business anymore, those places, make sure they give you some sort of proof that you you know, that they did this for you. Okay, and if you do it yourself, you want to make sure that your fax gives you some sort of receipt, or that you can print some sort of transmission page that would show that it was faxed to us by the due date. Okay, what happens if you don't get both of those things in by the due date? It's possible, if we don't have a lot of time, to go back and double check to see if, oh, by now you might have uploaded your sign in, sign out sheets, or maybe by now you submitted your attendance, but it's the 8th of the month. If we have time, we might be able to go back and process it, but there is no guarantee. There are times in the months of the contract year that time is too short for us to keep going back and looking to see if we have all the pieces. So it is really your responsibility. Think of it like your timesheet, right? It's how you get paid. So try to get everything on time. If you have an issue and you can't get it in on time, please reach out to your reimbursement specialist. The caseload assignment list is on the website. Each staff member has assigned alphabet, school readiness, and then VPK is our one person show, Karen Keene. Okay. Let them know what issue you're having. And if you can't reach them, reach out to me and we'll work out some way to be able to, you know, see what we can do to make sure that you still get reimbursed. Okay. That's really all I have to say about attendance. Use your user guides. The link is right there on your dashboard. Every single time they update the provider portal user guide, a new one is right there on your dashboard. All you have to do is click on it. If you have a question, if you have a concern, if you can't figure it out, then, you know, use your guide or go to the website. There's so much information on our website. Use the tip sheet. I've tried to break it out, sign in, sign out sheets, attendance, et cetera, so you can go to the part that you need to learn about or refresh your memory about. Okay. And absences. Okay. There's no waivers in place for absences any longer since January 1st. Our coalition uses a request for justification of excessive absence form. It's available on our website. When the children have more than 3 absences, you need that form and any supporting documentation number 1 through 5 from the form. The form is very clear about what you should do. The biggest problem we have with the request for justification of excessive absence form is providers are not attaching it to the 4th absence. Don't upload it. It has to be attached to the E or the A that you record on the attendance when you get to the 4th one. That's where my team looks for it. Okay. So that's where it gets attached. If you need assistance with any of this, reach out to your reimbursement specialist. If they can't help you, we'll get someone who can kind of go through the steps to help you how to do these things. But also use your guides. That's what they're there for. Okay. So you get 3 free per month, no doc, no form, nothing needed. Anything beyond that, you need the RJOA form. If it's court-ordered visitation, you need the court order. If it's hospitalization, you need the discharge paperwork. You can, you know, black out anything except like the child's name, and you know, we don't need the HIPAA part, but we need to just see that the discharge date was this date or whatever. Okay. Holidays, very, very important that you choose those the way you want them at the beginning of the contract year when you're doing your profiles and your contracts are being done. You don't want to be making changes throughout the whole year. It's not fair to your families, and it's not fair to staff who have to go through amendments and so on. Basically, you should know what your 12 holidays are from July 1, 21 till June 30, 2022. Why? Your families need to know what days you're going to be closed. Now, there are times when you may need to change a future one, and if you do, then of course you have the option, but follow the steps. Don't wait till after the date because it won't be approved, and if you were closed on a different day, the holiday would stand and you would not get a choice for another day. Okay, you can't switch them around, can't exchange one for another. Rates. Lots and lots of questions come in about what you're being paid, especially when we did the rate change 1/1, and especially if you did another rate change after 1/1, right? Go back to your amendment. Your amendment has this beautiful rainbow colored page in it. And in that amendment is your private pay rate, the ELC maximum reimbursement rate, It compares the two. It says how much will be paid to you. Then if your gold seal, that's added in. If your quality performance, it's added in. And if your child assessment, you'll get that in the 3 periods, when the 3 periods are completed and the benchmarks are done, and the system will run reversals and then add the 5% child assessment, and you'll get the difference. Okay. If you have questions about that, reach out to your reimbursement specialist. If they can't help you, email me, call me. I will help you try to understand that. But please use your amendments, use your contract, use your profile, educate yourself about how these things work so that you can what? Look at your reimbursement detail reports and make sure that you're getting paid properly. Okay. The state put 2 ways to run the report. June is the payment period for May service period. So you can run the reimbursement detail report by the payment period being June, but you would see May days and dollars and copays, etc. Of course, copays are waived for what? May and June. So we're not deducting copays, but normally that's what you would see. And if we did an adjustment in the June payment period with May service period, say for April, those details would also be on your June payment period report. Now, if you want to see if you were paid for all of April for all the children correctly, then you could run that report by the April service period and you would see everything that was paid for April, whether we paid it in May or in June or whatever. Okay. So how do you get to those? Attendance tab, reimbursement details. There's a toggle there. School readiness, VPK, and local. Local is your teen parent and also all day pre-K. Okay. So learn how to do those. Should you look at those reports? Most definitely. Why? Something could have gone wrong with the system. A reimbursement specialist could have made a mistake. We could have rejected something that you failed to resubmit, right? Speaking of that, we're ending the contract year June 30th. If you have not submitted any July 1, 2020 through April or May 2021, you need to do that with this processing period. Because why? When June 30th comes and we get your June attendance, we will not be able to go back and process any prior month attendance or do any adjustments. So you want to be looking at those reports and alerting the reimbursement specialist when you find something that is not correct, that needs an adjustment. And I think I said enough. Look for the new tip sheet to be uploaded to our website for July 1. Otherwise, the current year one is there, and lots of other very resourceful and useful information. And if you have specific reimbursement issues, you should get with your reimbursement specialist first, because they process your attendance. They look at your sign in, sign out sheet. They know better than anybody else what the circumstances are of your reimbursement. But if you don't get satisfaction, or if you don't understand, or you need more help or more information, please reach out to me. Okay. Thank you so much for all you do. I know it's been a very, very rough year and a half or so. I thank you, and we appreciate you very, very much.
Thank you, Rhonda.
You're welcome.
All right. So we want to make sure that we're going to our contract specialists and our reimbursement specialists first. I can tell you right now, my contract specialists know so much more, so much quicker than I do. Sometimes I have to research things and I'm a little slow. So it's really very, very beneficial for you to go to the person who has your stuff right in front of them and can figure it out. There are some contract process tips. Some of the common things that we see that cause us to have to reject contracts and send them back to be fixed. One of those is the child assessment question. I'm talking about SR now. This is all on SR contracts. VPK contracts are a little less bulky than the SR contracts. And so there's fewer places for you to put your information in, because most of the information for VPK contracts, most of the information goes into the application section of that rather than the contract. That's why the SR contract is so much longer. But one of the things that you're going to come across in the provider responsibilities and scope of work section is going to talk about assessment, child assessment. Now, the contract has two places where it talks about child assessment. The first time it talks about child assessment, it's talking about the ASQs, the ASQ3 and the ASQ SE. Those are currently, the parents are getting the first opportunity to complete those ASQs and are getting reminders, daily reminders, right up until the last day they have an opportunity to do it. And then at that point, it gets cut off and you will be getting notification that you will need to go ahead and do the ASQ. That's completely different than this piece that I'm talking about here and what you see on the screen. This is the child assessment that is using a recognized tool that providers must be trained and certified in order to use. And this is the child assessment that qualifies the provider for a 5% differential. So when you get to this provider responsibilities and scope of work, and it's talking about the child assessment tool and meet the criteria described, and you're going to get paid 3 times a year, or you have to do it 3 times a year. This is the one that's talking about child assessment. If you have not been trained to do the Teaching Strategies Gold, the CORE, or the Galileo assessment tool, then this is something that you say no to. You are not doing that one. That is not your child assessment that we're talking about. If you're just doing the ASQs, that's earlier in the contract. This is the one for the differential. I just want to make sure that everybody's clear on those, which one is which. If it sounds like you don't know what it's talking about, then your answer is probably no to the question in the contract as to whether or not you're participating in that. Okay. The other thing that we find out a lot is that we have to send contracts back for is the system is set up to talk to you about signature and certification, your electronic signature. You're about to electronically sign this form. And then what does it throw up in front of you? It throws up a box that asks for the title of the person signing the form. And if you're not careful and if you're not paying attention, because they've been saying signature, 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 and you don't look and see that little word title in front of that, then what we end up with is someone's name where we should have something that says owner or director. If you're a home provider, you can put owner or you can put provider. If you are a center and you are the owner, you can put owner. But if you're a center director and you're the contract designee, then you can put director in that slot. But please be careful, because they're priming you to put your signature in, and then they throw this box in front of you first and ask for your title. And so many people miss that because we are busy. You know, you probably have somebody over here who's laying on a mat in your office who's sick, and somebody over here who's, you know, coloring on a wall, and, you know, and somebody who needs to use the potty. So you've got all kinds of stuff happening while you're trying to do this, and it does get confusing. So you want to make sure that you are paying very close attention to the words that are in front of you when you're signing the contract. I want to talk about some of the reminders and some of the misconceptions in the contract. A lot of people don't really, some of you have been signing the contract for years and years and years, and new things get added every year. And I get that it's getting longer and longer and longer to read. But there are some misconceptions out there, or some things that people have forgotten that I want to make sure that everybody understands. And one of the things is about notification requirements. And one of the things I used to tell my staff, I said, if you think you should tell me, you should probably tell me. Don't think you should tell me and then keep it to yourself. If it crosses your brain at all that I should know about it, you probably should tell me about it. But one of the things that, and I'm going to say, if you feel like you should tell licensing something, you should probably also contact your contract specialist or a coach or somebody at the Early Learning Coalition to let them know. Because there are some notifications that often get missed, And unfortunately, sometimes it results in people or programs not getting reimbursed for various things. And so there are a number of notifications. Please read that section in your contract. But if there are any changes in your program information, you change your email, you change your phone number, any of those kinds of program information changes, or you add infants to your program. One of the things that's required is that within 14 days of that change, 14 calendar days, you notify the Early Learning Coalition. Provide notice of a temporary closure. That's to be done by close of business on the first day. And notice of when you reopen is supposed to be within 2 business days of reopening. So please make sure that you're hitting those timelines. If you are going to sell your business, or you're going to retire, or you're moving, you are contractually obligated to alert the coalition at least 30 calendar days prior to that change. The result of not letting us know could result in the withholding of your final reimbursement. So it's very, very important that you let us know these things. Unusual incidents need to be reported no later than close of the next business day. And a written report needs to be submitted within 3 business days of the incident. And again, if it causes you to close, that may be a non-reimbursable day if we don't get that within the timelines outlined. Written notification of a change in the contact person, who's designated, the person designated in the contract. So when you get towards the end of the contract, it's in the back section, there's a person listed there and a phone number and an email address. The change in any of those needs to be reported within 10 calendar days, because that's going to require an amendment to your contract. Because that information is in your contract as the designated person, it requires an amendment. Any information in your contract that is very specific that changes requires an amendment, whether it's an address, a contact person, your composite score, things like that. All of those things are in your contract and require an amendment. The other thing I want to say is please, please, please subscribe to the coalition's newsletter. An electronic newsletter goes out every month, and there is valuable information in there, often from the reimbursement team, from the contracts team, from professional development about wonderful trainings that are coming up. Screening and intervention often have tips and other opportunities in there. It is really very, very important that you get that e-newsletter. I was surprised recently, someone asked me to go through the people who had unsubscribed, and I was amazed at the number of contracted providers who had unsubscribed, probably by accident, but probably weren't getting the e-newsletter because they were on that list. So I think we've done our due diligence and contacted those people to let them know, hey, did you know you were on the unsubscribed list, and do you really want to be there? But if we missed you and you're not getting it, please let us know. If you're not getting it, there is a copy of every month's newsletter on our website at the bottom of the For Providers page. No, wait, I think it's in the media and communication page. Anyway, you'll find it. It's in there. There's also the opportunity to subscribe in there. So if you have somehow accidentally unsubscribed yourself, you can go in and ask to resubscribe. So take advantage of that, please, because we put a lot of important information in there. All right, now I am going to unshare my screen with the questions. And what we want to do is, if we have people who have questions, we want to ask them. So just to clarify, I have a question here. Would storm closings be under notice of temporary closure? Yes. So if there is a hurricane warning and there is an announcement within Pinellas County and the schools are closed and you close, that is a temp closure. Now, we went over a lot of stuff. So anybody who has any questions about anything,
Miss
please
Tina,
ask them. Yes, Rhonda.
can I just add to that storm closure question?
Sure, please.
Okay, so
'Cause I don't
you
know
need to follow
everything.
the process for the temporary closure, depending on if it's your whole site or like maybe your school was affected only power wise or something along that line. So you have to be careful about whether we're talking about a whole county closure due to a hurricane or something along that line, or are we talking about an electrical storm that affected just your school? Whether you have VPK, do you need to make up a day or change your calendar or do an exception? So really, really, really look at that temporary closure process. There's 3 versions: SR and VPK providers, whole school, SR only, VPK only. Now, if you have a classroom only closure right this moment until a new version of OEL provider portal is rolled out, for right now, if you have a classroom only closure and you have a notification from the Department of Health that says your 1-year-old classroom needs to close, that is not a temporary closure right now. That is a classroom closure that affects only the 1-year-old classroom. And you record absence due to disaster for the children enrolled in that classroom, and you upload the DOH notification letter to the first D for those children that were in that classroom. Okay. Tina, I had a whole bunch of questions that I was trying to answer that were just to me when you were talking, or I felt
Okay.
like they were. So hopefully I didn't step on your toes at all. But
Absolutely not.
unusual incidences still need to be reported to your contract specialist. Don't just go in there on May 31st and throw in a temporary closure and say, oh, we had a flooded classroom, oh, this or that. I understand that you're in an unusual situation and maybe you're not, considering all the reporting requirements, but that requires reporting. You can't just throw in a temporary closure with no documentation or not talking to anybody and expect us to approve it. Besides the fact that you shouldn't be waiting until the last day of the month. If that affected your school on May 8th and May 9th, you should have been on it, letting somebody know, hey, I have this situation, and is it a temporary closure, or what for sure do I need to do the unusual incident report? Do I need to, what documentation do I need, right? If you have an electrical problem, you might need to hire a contractor and show proof that you had an electrical problem or a plumbing problem or a roof problem. And you don't do it 2 weeks after you already took care of the issue. You do it within the reporting requirement. So
And again, that's
protect yourselves so you can get paid.
Yeah, and that is contractually required. Remember, we talked about unusual incidents being reported by the end of the next business day and a written report by the 3rd business day after that event. So when signing the contract, you're agreeing that you understand those things and those things need to happen. So, we try to be as understanding and as flexible as we can, but we're also held to the standards of that contract. It's our responsibility to make sure that it is being executed in the manner in which the state requires. And so it's not always fun to have to tell you no. I don't like to say no. I don't like to be the disciplinarian because it makes me feel bad. But at the same time,
I don't want to hold your money.
No,
I don't want to hold your money.
We want you to get that. So if you're letting us know, we can help guide you through that process instead of springing on you at the end of the month. Oh, I'm sorry, we can't pay you for that. Whereas if you let us know, we can say, okay, well, have you gone in and done this? This is what you need to do in order to make sure that everything is done and we can get you paid for that day. So it's really important we want to help you work through those processes. Okay, did we have any other questions that I missed?
I just wanted to put it out there. I've been in the background just muting everyone just to keep the background noise at bay. But you can click on that little microphone that's in your box and unmute yourself if you have a question.
Good point, Miss Angela. Thank you.
So I'm going to throw up the last part of this. Oh my goodness, what just happened? I'm going to throw up the, what happened to me? Oh, my computer went crazy. Oh, I'm viewing Shirley. Let's not do that. Okay, here we go. My mouse is super sensitive and I just did something really crazy. So let me throw the PowerPoint slide back up here. And I want to give you the last bit of information that we have here. This are contract team members. And as you heard Rhonda say, her team, in the resource section on our website, there's a list of all the reimbursement teams and which sites they're responsible for. Now, I believe all of the contracts team is also on our page where it shows all of our staff, but I just wanted to throw this out there for you. And it has all of their email addresses. Right now, we are plugging through over 400 contracts. Right now, we're about a quarter of the way through, which means we still have 300 contracts to get done in 3.5 weeks. So when you see that pop up in your box, please don't sit on it. Please go ahead and work through it as quickly as possible. And if you have questions, please contact them because they want you to get it right the first time so that we can turn them around as quickly as possible and nobody's having to worry about whether or not they're going to have a valid active contract come July 1st. We are taking contracts in the order and initiating contracts in the order in which we received the provider profiles. So if you were one of the first people to get your provider profile done and everything else is in order, you should be one of the first people to get your contract. If there was some procrastination and your profile wasn't done until last week, you're probably not going to see your contract initiated until really close to the end of the month, in which case then we really need for you to turn it around as soon as possible so you don't have any non-reimbursable days at the beginning of July because your contract isn't active.
And don't forget that reimbursement specialists have to key 7/1/2021 rates for all 426 school readiness contracted providers, as well as key 12 paid holidays for all 426 school readiness providers. So that is not something that is done by a snap of our fingers. That takes time. And the more you wait, the longer contracts take to get it to Lindsay and get it certified. And here we are, it's June 30th or it's July 5th, and your holiday isn't keyed and you don't know if you're going to get paid and so on and so forth. So if you don't see the H on the attendance roster on the day that you believe you have a paid holiday certified in your contract, which you can look in your contract and see those 12 holidays, make sure you do that. But if you believe you are supposed to have an H, say on July 5th, if you chose that and you don't see an H, then don't submit your attendance on August 1st without the H on there. As soon as you know it's missing, reach out to your reimbursement specialist. You can email them, you can call them. Remember, the first 8 to 12 days of the month, we are processing around 7,000 school readiness children attendance and around 3,000, 3,200 or so VPK. One person does all VPK attendance and everything that's required for VPK. And the rest of us do school readiness. So if you wait till July 2nd, well, that's not correct. If you wait till August 1st to let us know your holiday is missing for July 5th, now we have to reject your attendance if you submitted it, and then we have to get it fixed if it needs corrected, or if it can be corrected, and you're at risk of maybe not even getting reimbursed for that holiday. So really, you want to do that part of your profile ahead of your contract correctly the first time, at least the first round, so we can get them in and get them done. Sorry. Thank you.
Okay. So I do want to remind everybody, one of the things that is so very helpful is that provider portal user guide. If you're like me, I am a very visual person. I need pictures. I need to see things done. The best way I learn is to watch somebody else do it, or to be able to see pictures to see what's supposed to be on the screen in front of me while I'm doing things. The provider portal user guide has those screenshots of what your screen should look like when you're doing these processes. So I'm really going to encourage everybody to continue to go to the provider portal user guide first and try to figure that out and see what's there. And if you're still struggling with it, then obviously you want to call either your reimbursement specialist or your contract specialist for some help. Please let us know if you have any questions or issues during your contracting process. We want it to go smoothly. We don't want to add more frustration on a year of stacked with frustrations. So I want to thank everyone for their time. I'm going to stop sharing and see if there are any last minute questions.
Yes, I have a question.
Okay.
Yes, my name is Linda Garvey. My question is that my application was rejected, but when she sent the note back, she told me to put daycare provider. And I kept thinking about it. I was saying to myself, they got to be wrong. But listening to you guys, you say that I was supposed to put director on there. Could I go in there and change that? Daycare provider is okay. I'm a daycare school.
You're a school. Yeah. So
Yes.
at that point, you're probably going to want to put director on there if that is the position.
Yeah, she told me, but the person who emailed me told me to put daycare provider. And I kept thinking about it. I said, that got to be wrong. A daycare provider.
I think it should be director. I think it really should be director. So
I can go in tonight and change that? Or do I need to have somebody open it?
yeah, if it's in rejected status, you can probably go back in and deal with that.
Okay, that's fine.
If you struggle with that, then reach out to your contract specialist tomorrow and let them know that you had an issue, and they will be able to walk you through that process.
All right, thank you.
All right. Any other questions pop up? Rhonda, are you still answering questions, or are you good there?
I'm available to answer any questions if somebody wants to unmute themselves and ask. I pretty much took care of everything I had in the queue from earlier.
Okay. Well, we just want to make sure that the questions are general process questions and not specific scenarios, if at all possible. So
one of the providers asked me, do they need more than just the RJOA for all absences? Okay, so on absence 4, or whatever absence needs the request for justification of excessive absence, regardless if it's the first one, the 5th one, the 8th one, the RJOA goes on the 4th A. If you use code 1, 3, 4, or 5, the form tells you it requires additional backup documentation. If it's hospitalization, we need the discharge notification, so we can ascertain the number of days the child was in the hospital, right? If you use code 2 is kind of, does everybody remember when we used to get parent notes and you would have the parent write a note, oh, please excuse Johnny, he was at home with a bellyache, right? Okay, our coalition said, we don't want these very specific notes from the parents. We use the RJOA form in its place. So if you use a code 2, it could mean one of two things. Johnny was at home with a bellyache and didn't need to see a doctor, and then you will only have the RJOA form. But if Johnny had a sore throat and needed to go to the doctor, you would have the RJOA form and the doctor's note. You don't have to have the doctor's note, but my recommendation is if a child is seeing a doctor and the parent is using code 2 for that absence, and there is a doctor's note, that you do both documents. You upload both documents. Now the system is persnickety about that 2 megabyte size. So if your scanner is large, you will have to put the RJOA on the 4th A, and you might have to put the doctor's note on the 5th A. My team will find it, but the RJOA goes on the 4th A. Okay, but it might be excusing excusing absence number 1, 2, or 3. And 4, 5, and 6 are your free ones. Okay. Does that make sense? So they don't have to necessarily be in chronological order. Okay. I hope that is clear. That is very detailed information that is in my tip sheet that is on the website right now. So if you need more refresher, or you need to read through it yourself and test yourself to make sure you're doing it right and follow along, go get the tip sheet. Okay. Print it, highlight it, put it in a notebook, put 3 rings in it. I don't know, something like that. Thank you.
Okay, well, I'm not seeing any other questions in the chat. If no one else is feeling chatty verbally, then I guess that we will say goodnight, give you an hour that we had set aside of your time back. Angela, do you have anything that you need to add to this?
I do not. The only thing I would say is if you tune into our nap time news on June the 18th, on June the 11th, Tina, I think, is going to do a little bit of something about the contracts, which might be the same as tonight.
Yeah,
And
it's gonna be a
then,
regurgitation of tonight.
but on the 18th, we'll have our quality team, and we have a lot of really exciting like programming coming up this year with tons of incentives. You know, we have stipends and materials and really great training. So tune in for the nap time news on June 18th for that. And of course, if you're familiar with it on Facebook, you know that that will be recorded. And if you miss it, you can always, you know, go back and read it. But just to reiterate what Rhonda said, we sure do appreciate you. And, you know, we're here for you. We really, we want to be here for you. And we thank you for everything that you do. Your work is hard work, but it's needed work. So thank you.
Yes, thank you everyone very much. You guys have been truly essential for,
Definitely.
I mean, you've always been truly essential, but especially so this last year. And
Yeah.
Yes.
it has not gone unnoticed, and we truly, truly appreciate it. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, thank you so very much. Everybody take care. Have a good evening.
Thanks, guys.
Good night.
Take care.